Camera on. Thank you. We are live.
Yeah.
Good morning and welcome to this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. I'm Kevin Jones from Democratic Services at Kingston. The subcommittee this morning is made up of councillors Green, Owen and Sillett. First item of business is the appointment of a chair for the meeting. Can I ask subcommittee members to nominate a chair for today's meeting?
I nominate Councillor Sillett.
Thank you, Councillor Sillett. Councillor Owen, do you second that? Councillor Owen?
Apologies, I do.
Thank you. Councillor Sillett, you're in the chair.
Welcome to this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. This meeting is being broadcast live, recorded, and will be made available on the Council's YouTube channel. The agenda is available on the Council's website by following the links to Your Council, then Council Meeting Calendar, and you'll find this meeting on today's date. The quorum for this meeting is 3 members, and all will need to be present at all times. If any subcommittee member or the legal advisor lose connection, we'll pause to allow them to rejoin as soon as possible. To reduce feedback, we'll mute their microphone while not speaking. After the subcommittee has heard the submission, I'll ask members if they have any questions on the submission. Members can also indicate they wish to speak by using the chat function, but please don't use the chat function to ask questions of officers or members. And remember that all meeting participants on the video call will be able to see what's been entered in the chat. Please also keep mobile phones in silent mode or switched off during the meeting. I'm Councillor Sillett. I want to now introduce the other participants. Councillor Liz Green, Councillor Anne Owen, Robert Boktai of Winkworth Sherwood on behalf of Motor Fuel Limited, John Mahan, Head of Range and Space MFG, Shan Swiragan, Regional Manager of MFG, Simon Cooper, Paralegal at Winkworth Sherwood. We have 2 other persons today, Councillor James Giles and Angus Lee. Guy Bishop is our legal advisor, Nikki Bentley is our licensing officer, and finally Kevin Jones, Democratic Services Officer, who opened the meeting. Do any of these subcommittee members have a pecuniary interest, non-registrable interest, or any other registrable interest to declare in relation to the application today? That's no. Can we confirm the meetings for the minutes held on the 1st of July as a correct record? Agreed. Can we confirm the minutes of the meetings held on the 3rd of July as a correct record? Anne, are you shaking your head?
I wasn't sure which meeting you meant on the 3rd of July.
It was the Anglican Church, the front lawn at the church.
Oh, I can't confirm I wasn't there.
Well, look, let's consider them agreed, and I'll sign them at the later date if that's okay. The parties have already been notified of the usual procedures for licensing hearings as set out in pages 4 to 6 of the agenda. Paragraph 57 on page 5 of the agenda pack deals with notification of the decision following the subcommittee's deliberations. This will be confirmed by email later today, and the full details and reasons will follow within 5 working days. Are there any objections to proceeding on the basis of those procedures?
No.
We'll move on to the hearing in that case. This is Rose Cottage Service Station, Mirco Cost Cutter at 159 Kingston Road, New Malden, KT3 3NS. It's an application for variation of premises license under the Licensing Act 2003. Please note the late materials published. I'll now call on Nikki Bentley, the licensing officer, to introduce the report on the application.
Thank you, Chair. So, as we know, this application for a full variation to a premises licence relates to Rose Cottage Service Station, 159 Kingston Road, New Malden, KT3 3NS. The application was made on the 28th of May 2025 by Winkworth Sherwood LLP on behalf of Motor Fuel Limited. The application seeks a variation to the existing premises licence to authorise the extension of hours for the sale of alcohol to 24 hours daily, the removal of the existing conditions listed in Annex 2 on the current premises licence, and the replacement of the said removed conditions listed in Annex 2 with the conditions listed in Section 16 of the application form, as well as the operating schedule in your report. Relevant pages of the application form are attached at Annex 1. A copy of the current premises licence is attached in Annex 2, and you will see that they currently benefit from a premises licence that authorises the sale by retail of alcohol, off sales only, Monday to Saturday from 6 AM to midnight and Sundays 7 AM to 11 PM, as well as the provision of late night refreshments currently from 11 PM till 5 AM every day. The proposed hours of operation are laid out in Annex 3. I can confirm that the applicant has advertised the application by way of a public notice displayed at the premises and by an advert in a local newspaper. The application has also been made available on the council's website for the full consultation period. I can confirm that all responsible authorities received a copy of the application. Trading standards initially raised concerns around the protection of children from harm licensing objectives. Following further consultation, though, the applicant has addressed these concerns by making amendments to their operating schedule, and these amendments are reflected in the conditions shown in Annex 4 of the report. And in light of the amendments made, no representations were received from responsible authorities. 4 valid representations were received from other persons. The representations make reference to matters that relate to all 4 of the licensing objectives, and copies of these are attached in Annex 5. 1 representation makes reference to the need for a licensed premises, and members will be aware that in making their decision, need cannot be taken into consideration. Paragraph 14.19 of the Secretary of State's guidance refers. A map showing the location of the premises is attached in Annex 6, and some photographs of the premises and surrounding area are attached for your information in Annex 7. In considering this application, the committee is required to take into account the Secretary of State's guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003 and its own statement of licensing policy, and relevant paragraphs are attached in Appendix 8. The committee will note that the additional material was submitted by the applicant to include paragraph 10.15 of the guidance, which was not originally in my report, as well as late material received yesterday called Compare Your Area, with details of crime in Kingston upon Thames compared with crime in similar in other areas. Hopefully you will all have a copy of this. Happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Do members have any questions of the licensing officer? My question, just for clarification, Nikki, is has there ever been a 24-hour license at these premises under previous owners? Selling out?
No, there hasn't. Not a premises license.
I now call on the applicant's representative, Robert Botkai, to give a summary of the application. Paragraph 47 on page 4 of the agenda pack deals with the length of time an applicant can speak. You've got up to 10 minutes to present your submission, and Kevin will advise you when you've got 1 minute left. Mr. Botkai.
Thank you. And first of all, good morning, and can you hear me? Excellent. Can I just check who's here? I can see that Councillor Giles is here. Are any of the other interested parties present?
I think there was
There's one other. What is one other?
The other party has not entered the meeting as yet.
Oh, okay.
So we don't have Angus Lee at the moment.
Okay.
We don't at the moment.
Right. Thank you very much, and good morning. So I represent Motorfuel Group, MFG. Just a bit of background. We have 805 24-hour petrol stations around England and Wales. So the company is very experienced at operating 24-hour stores. With me is Shan Shirangan, who is the regional manager for MFG, and he can talk to you should you have any questions about operation and a bit of history about the running of the site. As Nikki has said, we've got a license 6 to 12 Monday to Saturday, 7 to 11 Sunday. We also have late night refreshment, 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. So we are a 24-hour store at the moment, but we can't sell alcohol during the night. So this application is about that. We are seeking to remove the existing conditions on the license. They're a bit dated, and we've put in a revised operating schedule, which you've got a robust set of conditions could go on to this license should you grant the variation today. There is a bit of history. We applied in 2020. We got the late night refreshment in 2021. In 2023, we applied for the 24-hour variation. At that time, the police and public health, as well as 3 residents, objected. The residents didn't attend the hearing, but the police and public health did. Police were represented by counsel. In the decision notice in 2023, the committee did state that the police were to be regarded as the experts on crime and disorder, the main source of advice on matters relating to the promotion of the crime and disorder licensing objectives. So, and that follows the Section 182 guidance. We're in a different position now. We, as Nikki said, we've reached agreement with the Training Standards Officer on conditions, but importantly, we met with your police licensing officers on site on the 22nd of May. Now, there was no meeting with the police last time around in 2023. So we met with your officers, Hannah McCulley and Jeremy Weston, on the 22nd of May. We went through the operating schedule with them. We sent it to them after the meeting, and they said they had no objection now to the variation, now that they'd seen the site and seen the operation, a very limited extent of the operation. It's a very small store, and they confirmed that they would not be making representation. They haven't done so today. So we are in a very different position to the one where we appeared before you in 2023. So the police have seen the operating schedule and they're satisfied with it, and there's no representation now from public health. We do have representations from residents who are concerned that if you allow this variation, there'll be an increase in antisocial behaviour. Well, there's no evidence of that, and the police are your experts on crime and disorder. There's some confusing information on crime stats. And the reason I put the additional information in yesterday was not to so that I could go into it in any great detail, but if you spend a bit of time on our friend Google and look up crime stats, you'll get all sorts of different figures, and they can be very confusing, and they would need to be we would need to drill down. Bluntly, if there are crime stats to be considered, you would need the police to bring those to you and explain what crime stats. So I've seen data which suggests that Kingston is one of the top towns in the area in terms of fewest crime and disorder. I've no doubt what the residents have submitted has been found online as well, but I would ask you not to rely on crime data without the police bringing actual crime data to you. So residents are concerned there'll be an increase in traffic and groups of people during unsafe hours. That's not our experience running our other 24-hour stores. They don't attract a great deal of traffic, and we don't expect groups of people to be hanging around the premises at night. They don't do so at the moment. We've had no complaints at all from residents about the 24-hour operation that we've got at the moment. And according to our records, there have been just 2 incidents in the last 12 months. If there's a concern about shoplifting, it doesn't apply, and this is something we talk to the police about, because the doors will be closed during the relevant times of this application. Customers won't be coming into the store, so there can be no increase in theft as a consequence of this this variation. Residents concerned about increased noise, littering, loitering. Again, there's no evidence of this. It's not seen at our other sites. What I would say, we have over 800 24-hour petrol stations. Occasionally there can be an issue, and we deal with those head on. MFG is a responsible retailer, so been one or two stores in the time that I've acted for MFG, which is probably about 6 or 7 years now, where the police have come to us and said, look, we've got a problem with it. With the 24-hour operation, we immediately suspend the alcohol sales during the night and work with the police before reintroducing alcohol. But as I say, that's not the normal pattern. I'd say it's no more one or two sites out of the 800 that I'm aware of. And we'd apply that here. If the police were to come to us, or the licensing officers to come to us at any time saying, look, we didn't have a problem before, we do now, then we would act on that. And of course, if we don't act on that, we know perfectly well what the remedies and sanctions are. Councillor Giles has put in a representation. I'm a little bit confused by it. He refers to previous tenants Jet. We don't even know when Jet were there. It's a long time ago. We've been operating the site for, I think, over 10. Well, it was Mirko in 2008. We think it was, looking back, it was BP in 2014, but we don't have any information as to when it was a Jet branded store, but it must have been before 2008. It refers to us being in collaboration with Londis. Londis is simply the supplier. It's a supplier, and we have their signage. So we're not in collaboration with Londis as such. We sell the food and drink. Londis is the supplier. There's reference to a Kingston University report. We've not actually seen this report, but it's talking about preloading. Well, we're able to sell alcohol until midnight anyway. And so if there was evidence of preloading from our store, then that should have been produced today. But we don't believe that students are going to be preloading after midnight. And then there's reference to 2017 crime figures and then health data from 2013-14, which is simply, well, I would submit, not relevant to an application in 2025. And if you consider that they are relevant, I'd ask you to attach extremely little weight to data which is clearly out of date. So there's no evidence to suggest that the grant of this variation will encourage criminal activity. The hospital stats from Councillor Giles are very difficult to apply here, given their age and given that public health are not making a representation. So we've got a robust set of conditions. Section 182 guidance, and Nikki has referred to this in her report. Paragraph 10.15 importantly says that shops, stores and supermarkets should normally be free to provide sales of alcohol for consumption off the premises at any times when the retail outlet is open for shopping, unless there are good reasons based on the licensing objectives for restricting those hours. And I would submit that good reasons means evidence. And so for you to refuse the application today and go against the government's guidance, you would need to have evidence before you today that there are good reasons to restrict those hours. And your policy at paragraph 72 is similar. It recognises the government's guidance and repeats the wording from the government's guidance. So we're very happy to keep the matter under review with the police. It was very helpful that they came to visit us to see actually what the operation looks like. And they were, really, the meeting didn't take more than 10-15 minutes. It was they were satisfied very quickly that a very small operation like this would not have any impact on the licensing objectives.
Do you have that?
Well, I think I'm done. So very happy to answer any questions that you may have, as is Sean.
Members, do you have any questions to the applicant? Councillor Green.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation or the talk. What interests me is it would be the only place, I believe, nearby that would be selling alcohol after 11 o'clock, after midnight. I know there's the 24-hour Tesco's, which Councillor Giles mentions, which is about a mile away, but it's not really in a residential area there. How would you deal with the idea that people have come out of a licensed premise, drinking on site, so nightclub or a pub, what have you, and then decided they wish to continue drinking back at their home, but they have no alcohol in. So therefore they are calling in to the petrol station, but they are already intoxicated, and it would be illegal to sell them alcohol. But I think you probably, experience tells me that in a petrol station of that size, you would only have one person present over the night shift, or certainly in the front of house at the kiosk. So how would you ensure that that person is not served? And if you are not serving that person and you're recording the fact that you've refused the sale of alcohol to them, that they then are not upset, shall we say, about the refusal, and therefore cause a public nuisance in the neighbouring area?
Okay, well, there's two parts. First of all, we have a 24-hour alcohol petrol station a mile away at Kingston, which we've operated without difficulty. So it's not...
Sorry to interrupt, can you just tell me which one that is? Is that the Shell one?
Yes, Sean, is that
No, it's an SO.
SO?
It's
Which
on the
road's
roundabout.
it on? Just trying to get my bearings. It might be SO.
It's literally next to Tesco, right opposite Tesco's.
Oh, I know, on the roundabout.
On the roundabout, that's right.
On
Yeah,
the roundabout on the A3.
that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Malden Way, I've got it. Kingston Malden Way, is that right?
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
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 Yeah. So that's 1.1 mile away, 24/7. We've had no reported incidents there at all. So in terms of, it's a good question about the intoxication. So it's illegal to sell alcohol to somebody who's intoxicated. So the cashier, part of the cashier's training is to observe customers as they are coming to the night pay window, and if they appear to be intoxicated, they are refused sale, as will be the case before midnight, because they may use the night pay window before midnight as well. So that's part of their training. We don't have a problem elsewhere. I understand what you're saying. Customers know that they can be refused. We keep a refusals log, and that can be inspected at any time by officers, but we don't expect it to be a frequent problem here. So it is part of the training. So we've got over 800 24-hour licenses where we have to adopt, and virtually all of them sell through the night pay window at night. There are exceptional stores that keep the doors open, but mostly it's night pay window, and it works. And we haven't had issues with sales to intoxicated. None of the licenses have been reviewed. I'm very pleased to say that we've not had a call for any of the 800 licenses to be reviewed.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Owen.
Thank you. You mentioned you'd had 2 incidents over the last 12 months. Can you say something about the severity of those incidents?
Yes, one was shoplifting, and there was one incident of a fight on forecourt. I don't know, Shan, whether you've got any information than that.
I can't recall this 2 customers. I think somebody was overtaking, trying to this petrol related, nothing to do with the off license. So yeah, I can't recall exactly what it is, but it's 2 individuals trying to fight in the forecourt.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
And councillor, if the police would have that data, and if the police were concerned that isolated incident was relevant to this application, I'm absolutely sure they would have brought it to your attention.
I'd like to ask a question of your 805 24-hour service stations or petrol stations. What sort of proportion of them sell alcohol 24 hours?
No, they are all 24 hours. Sorry, those are all 24-hour licenses, 805 of them.
And you mentioned that you've had problems at a couple of them where they've been suspended over the years.
Not suspended, where we voluntarily, there was one, I think it's down on the south coast near a nightclub in Cornwall somewhere, and there were some problems. These things tend to go in spells, frankly, where you get, and you have to break that cycle, and that's what we've done. I can't remember the other way. It's not for. I don't think we've had anything since the pandemic. Actually, I believe that these were pre-pandemic, but we've immediately shut down the alcohol sales during the night, and broken that cycle and worked with the police. But I can't remember more than 2 MFG sites where we had to do so.
Could I just, on behalf of the residents that have expressed concern. You know, that you can't buy alcohol around there after midnight. There have been some sort of incidents years ago around the petrol station reported.
Sorry, what incidents were those?
They're listed in one Councillor Giles's submission.
Or should we have a look at
He referred to about 12.
2017.
Yeah. Okay. But can you understand the concern of residents that, you know, this is a late night premises selling alcohol. It's the only one around that, and that it will attract problems with people being, you know, drunk, coming back from nightclubs, spilling out from pubs.
Right. I didn't want to interrogate Councillor Giles's statement too much, but he's first of all says the previous tenants, Jet weren't the previous tenants. He said we're granted 24-hour opening. Well, as far as I know, they weren't. This attracted so much trouble in terms of noise and disruption. Eventually, the police ran out of patience. Well, we don't know that. The police aren't here, and the 24-hour opening was cut back to more regular hours. We don't know that either. So, I mean, Nikki's confirmed to you that this store has never had a 24-hour license. So, I don't know where all that information has come from. It's well before our ownership, and the police have not brought that to your attention. So I don't know whether in 2017 there were 13 assaults within 500 meters. 500 meters. I don't know when was the last time you tried. Sorry, with respect, my running of 500 meters would take me quite a long time at the moment, let alone walking 500 meters. It's quite a big distance. So 13 assaults within 500 meters of the premises. We don't know what those relate to. We've no idea whether they're anything to do with sale of alcohol, certainly not at these premises. So it's very difficult to look at this data from Councillor Giles's statement going back to 2017 to establish whether it's in fact correct.
May I ask, in 2023, I believe that the police did object. This time they're not. What do you think has changed other than they visited you for 10 minutes?
Well, I think it was very important that they did visit because they could see the extent of the operation, and they were surprised. I think they had a perception before that it was quite a big store. They hadn't appreciated that it would be night pay windows, so customers would not be coming into the store, and that they felt that was significant. So they were satisfied. I can't speak for the police, but other than say they were quickly very satisfied with the operation.
Thank you, Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, you've mentioned the night window a few times. Forgive me, I don't think I read it in the conditions or in the operating schedule, and I may well have missed it. There's quite a lot of detail in there, but there is no intention, and if this was granted, no, it would always use the night pay window between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m. because I don't think you're restricted at the moment up to midnight. You could use the open shop before midnight at the moment.
It's paid B25, so the new operating schedule, Annex 4.
B25, thank you. Yeah.
So Annex 4, paragraph 11, the entrance doors to the shop will be closed before midnight and 6 a.m. and any. Between midnight and 6 a.m. and any sale customers will be made with night.
Thank you for pointing out where that is. Thank you.
But I believe we already used the night pay window before midnight. Shan, is that correct? So
that's correct. We start from 10 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah, we're already using the night pay window.
Yeah, that's correct.
And may I ask just a clarification? From my notes, you said there have been no complaints from residents since you went to 24 hours of trading with the food.
No,
we have no record of.
We haven't had no complaints. No.
Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Chair. Can you, without having to reveal anything that you don't want about your business, how brisk is your trade in food and petrol between 11 and 6 at the moment?
You bear with me. We have some. There is some trade. I mean, this is a public meeting, so I prefer to not put figures on it. But it's about, Shan, would you say about 20% of the turnover of the store can take place between midnight and 6 a.m.
Correct, yeah. 20% comes throughout the week. Yeah.
And we sell about £350 worth of alcohol between 10 p.m. and midnight. So it's not a huge. That's per week. Sorry. So you're looking at about £50. It's a small operation, and we don't expect all of a sudden going to become a destination venue if we're adding this item during the night. So not a huge item.
Okay. All right. And does that tend to be when people pop in for petrol?
Well, people can use it as a shop. They can use it for petrol. So it's combination. We're a local store.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's quite low.
Any more
Thank you.
questions from okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on to the responsible authorities. As set out in the report, representations were received from trading standards in relation to the protection of children from harm licensing objective. Following mediation, the applicant has addressed the concerns by making amendments to their operating schedule. These amendments are reflected in the conditions shown in Annex 4 of the report. In light of these amendments, the concerns raised by trading standards have been satisfied and the representation withdrawn. We'll move on to other persons. In accordance to the Council's licensing policy, 235 addresses were consulted in writing and informed that the application had been received. 4 valid representations were received from other persons. The representations make reference to the matters that relate to all 4 licensing objectives. Copies of these representations are attached in Annex 5. As set out in the report, 4 valid representations were received from other persons. We have, is it 1 person in attendance now? Councillor James Giles.
Before we start, in the interest of fairness, as Mr. Lee has not arrived, can I suggest that we allow Councillor Giles up to 10 minutes as we allowed Mr. Vodka up to 10 minutes?
Agreed. Councillor Giles will speak first. You've got 10 minutes to address the subcommittee, and Kevin will inform you when you've got a minute left.
It really is. Well, thank you, Chair, and thank you, committee, for allowing me the opportunity to address you this morning. This is the latest in a long line of applications at this site. The first being back in 2009, when I believe it was a jet garage, I must confess, before my time. But I've been involved in the various applications through the years, 2017 being the first, which you'll have to forgive me, is where some of that data comes from. It was in the licensing pack at the time. Then in 2020, and then various applications that have come through. And every time it's been rejected unanimously by this subcommittee. The premises is located on the Kingston Road between Kingston and New Malden within a large, quiet residential area. And across the road is my ward, Green Lane and St James, and that just falls into New Malden Village. The premises are on a busy bus route throughout the day and also benefits with the N87 night bus. This services the same route through the night with 4 buses per hour. It's located near to Green Lane Recreation Ground, which is an 8-minute walk away, 650 metres. The Kings Meadow Recreation Ground, which is 650 metres away, an 8-minute walk, known as the Kingston Road Recreation Ground, I believe, these days. And of course, the Aparto Arbory Court, which provides student accommodation for Kingston University. This is a large accommodation block and is 320 metres away, or a 4-minute walk. There is also Crown House, a large mixed private and social housing block adjacent to Arbory Court, and the venue, again, about 3 or 4 minutes away. The venue has applied, as I've said, for similar variations in 2017, 2020, perhaps one other time as well, since I've been a councillor. In 2017, the application attracted concerns from 52 local residents and councillors. The chair of the petition stated in a letter of concern...
Chair, this isn't the 2017 application, this is the 2025 application, and there hasn't been a long line of applications. I can go through...
No, there has. Sorry, this is not your opportunity to speak, Mr. Bockeye. This is mine.
Mr. Bockeye, yeah, I think we have to let Councillor Giles continue. You have made those points earlier. Councillor Giles, if you continue.
Thank you. This feels the latest in a long line of applications, and I know, because I've spoken on this matter, what is now at least the fourth occasion I first addressed this subcommittee at the age of 17 about this matter. I've been involved in these affairs for quite some time, Mr. Botkai. The chair of the petition stated at the time that if the venue was granted the extension in late night refreshments and alcohol, this, and I quote, would be intrusive and could encourage unnecessary levels of noise disturbance and antisocial behaviour for neighbouring residents late into the night. It was noted then, as is regularly fed back to me as a local councillor in Green Lane and St James, that residents are already subject to antisocial behaviour both in Green Lane Recreation Ground nearby and also along the Kingston Road, with litter and occasionally vomiting in the early hours of the morning along the Kingston Road. And in the past, I've reported that for clean-up. In 2020, the venue applied for the extension of the hours for the sale of alcohol to 24 hours daily, and the extension of the provision of late night refreshment to between the hours of 2300 and 5 daily. The same residents and venues were raised in the fact that the venue is in extreme juxtaposition to residential areas. The introduction of the purpose-built Arbury Court, the student hall's flats of residence, also offered a new concern, with 320 residents potentially having 24-hour access to buy alcohol. The manager at the time stated to a resident of mine that they were subject to unwanted visits from young adults trying to gain access to the building. And this was also told to the police in 2020.
I'm sorry to interrupt again, but this is going back a long way.
I'm sorry, Mr. Botkai, this is my opportunity to speak. It was 5 years ago. That is not a long time and is wholly relevant. It's related to the student flats and what the manager of your premises at the time had to say. Please do not interrupt me.
There's no need to interrupt me. Thank you.
Mr. Botkai, I think you have to allow Mr. Councillor Giles to make his submission.
I had the courtesy to listen to you, Mr. Botkai. The manager of the premises at the time, only 5 years ago, stated to both a resident of mine and to the police that they were subject to unwanted visits from young adults trying to gain access to the building. With the 24-hour sale of alcohol so close, students would have the opportunity to preload prior to a night out with easy access to Wimbledon or Kingston, and then on their return with transport links directly outside Arbury Court to postload with alcohol. The same could also be said for local residents of Crown House, which is a mixed block of social and private housing next to Arbury Court and the venue. The availability of the alcohol makes this area more attractive to people loitering, visiting Kings Meadow and Green Lane Recreation Ground, both open spaces, causing antisocial behaviour through elevated talking, urination, littering, vomiting and potential violent disorder, all of which have been experienced in open spaces in New Malden. One of the current priorities of our ward's Safer Neighbourhood team, as dictated by the ward panel at the moment, is to tackle antisocial behaviour in our open spaces. It is a concern of residents. In essence, the application would overall cause a negative impact on the local area, and thus it has been rejected every time so far. Regarding the application in 2023, the same venues previously discussed haven't changed, of course. Arbury was still, Aparto is still there. And again, speaking with the policing team only in 2023, they replied instantly, stating that the dedicated ward officers were already very concerned, given the proximity of the estate and the previous objections from residents. The admin and support manager for Arbury Court was spoken to by both myself and the police in 2023, and he stated they've actually had to introduce a curfew from 2300 hours for all residents due to complaints made from local residents about ASB in the area. Students are no longer allowed to be in the outside areas of the block talking, drinking, socialising, and access to alcohol could make this more difficult to manage or cause major disturbance. Within a 1 kilometre radius to the premises, from my research, there is the H Mart, which has licensable hours until 2100 hours, the Londis at 107 Kingston Road, which has alcohol to 2300 hours, the Para Food and Wine at 228 Kingston Road, 2300 hours, Aldi, which is licensed to 2300 hours, the Tesco Express on the High Street, only licensed to 2300 hours, Waitrose and Lidl, ditto to 2300, together with a number of unlicensed supermarkets that do not sell alcohol. There are no other 24-hour venues in this district direct vicinity, and there are no venues within this vicinity that sell alcohol beyond 2300 hours at the moment, bar Rose Cottage already. There's a fear that if this application is granted, it would set a precedent for other businesses with an off-licence capacity to follow suit, which would give further rise to a negative cumulative impact on the same licensable objectives. And if I may just then briefly speak to public health. This is at least the fourth time, as I say, that they've submitted the same variation. In 2017, 52 residents opposed. In 2020, further objections were received, but the application was then withdrawn by the applicant. Data from 2021 and 2022, which can be found in the agenda pack from the 2023 application from my own Liddington at the time, our head of public health, indicates that within a 500-metre radius of the service station, in 2022, there were 20 alcohol-related ambulance call-outs and over 700 incidents of crime. At the time, Iona says, if I may, there's a large development of student accommodation consisting of student flats, and like other London boroughs, Kingston has a high density of alcohol-selling premises. Kingston is in the top % of local authorities with the highest or worst density of alcohol-selling premises nationally. And so she too, at the time, had concerns. In short, Chair, I don't believe that 24-hour alcohol should be granted. And just in a final point, as a slight aside, if I may, in 2018, myself and Mr. Frederick Corbett of 130 Kingston Road tested out the operator's compliance with their licence as it stands and attempted to buy some wine at 1 a.m.
I object.
We were successful
Okay,
in.
Mr. Botcar,
We were.
one moment, please. Mr. Botcar, you can address any remarks in your closing statement. Councillor Giles, you continue.
We were successful in being able to procure bottles of wine gone midnight, and indeed a report was made to the licensing authority regarding this, and I had video footage which was submitted to David Kingston, and it was logged as a breach of the current licence. So I have grave concerns. I speak as a ward councillor. I speak as someone born and raised in Potters Grove, just a 1-minute walk from the service station. I regularly speak with residents along Kingston Road. They too have concerns, and every time this has come up, so far the licensing committee has rejected it, and I'd urge councillors here to do the same again today. Thank you.
Thank you. And any questions from members to Councillor Giles? I have one. Why do you think that only 4 people objected this time, whereas previously 50 people objected to it? It's a big drop-off.
If I may, I believe the last application only had 4 individual representations and the other came via a petition. And that's usually because every time this comes through, either myself or the late Mary Clark have coordinated a petition, which usually amasses in the region of 40 to 50 signatures. So they're just a pro forma with people that have signed their names. And in the past, with the exception of 2023, I hadn't been a ward councillor. I was doing that in my capacity as a resident. And so now I'm a ward councillor. I've chosen to address the committee in that capacity, speaking on behalf of my residents. And I'll level with you, Councillor Sillett. As I'm sure you can imagine, these last few weeks have been incredibly busy for me, and I simply have not had the time to go door to door as I normally would, collecting those pro forma signatures.
Can I ask what significance you attach to the fact that the police haven't objected? They don't seem to be worried about any crime and disorder, and that they've raised no objections to this.
I would say, Chair, that the licensing officer may feel that way with respect to him at Kingston Police Station. There's been no consultation, to my knowledge, with the local Safer Neighbourhood team officers, nor has there been any consultation with our ward panel. And I'll go back to the police's remarks that they made in 2023, which read, and I quote, and this came at the time from Hannah McCauley, who was PC Weston's predecessor. Hannah McCauley writes in the agenda pack from 2023, I spoke with the local Safer Neighbourhood team and officers replied instantly that the ward officers were already very concerned about the site, given the proximity of the estate and the previous objections from local residents. And so, whilst I have the utmost respect for the licensing team, I dare say that if the Safer Neighbourhood team had been consulted, they would take a very different view to this.
Councillor Green.
Councillor Giles, so obviously we have you say that the Safer Neighbourhood team may well have objected. I have to say, I think it's a shame you didn't ask the Safer Neighbourhood team to speak to the licensing team, which could have happened without being too time consuming for yourself. But can you report, do you have the details of the antisocial behaviour statistics for, and it wouldn't be your ward, I appreciate, it would be the neighbouring ward, although obviously you need to try and bring the two together because it's on the border. Those actual antisocial behaviour statistics broken down more recently than 2017 statistics for 500 metres?
I've made an FOI, but unfortunately I've not had it back yet.
If there's no further questions, Councillor Owen.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Councillor Giles, you mentioned that public health had some objections previously, but none this time. Do you know why?
I'm afraid not. And in a similar vein to the crime stats, I have also put in an FOI to ask for their more recent data, because obviously their most recent data covers the 2022 period. But again, the time has just been such that I haven't had that back as of yet. But I would say, of course, that, you know, given the proximity to the student accommodation, given what we know the student accommodation have imposed, i.e. the curfew, I would suggest that those issues, you know, are still current and live.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
One final thing, do you attach, what weight do you attach to the fact that this company runs over 800 24-hour service stations selling alcohol, and they report that they've only had a couple of incidents, and when they have occurred, they've voluntarily suspended them, and one of them is on the south coast next to a nightclub. I mean, I can understand, honestly, I can understand the concerns and fears of disorder, but just based on evidence, this seems to, I mean, well, what do you think about those stats that we've been given?
I think they're very interesting, Councillor Slett. I think we have to consider each venue in its own right, which is why at the end, although the applicant objected, I did have to briefly mention the fact that in 2018, I personally attempted to, in effect, test compliance with the licence, and both myself and Mr. Corbett found and identified a breach at that particular premises. And so, whilst I don't doubt that in other areas perhaps it works, I can't speak to the SO garage, but people don't seem to complain about that one in Merton. I'm very concerned, given that it's slap bang in the middle of a residential area, given that there is student housing nearby, that it will simply exacerbate antisocial behaviour. There's no other licences nearby, and not to mention, of course, the fact that almost certainly, as I believe the SO is, it'll feature on Deliveroo and Uber Eats to also deliver to surrounding areas, which also really concerns me.
Are you not, are your concerns alleviated by the fact that there are no reported complaints from residents about selling the alcohol to midnight so far from this company?
Well, there isn't anything that could trigger a licence review, Councillor Sillett, in my mind. But as I said in my representations, if I may, I regularly speak to residents along Kingston Road who report littering along Kingston Road, who report ASB in the night, especially loud students getting off the night bus, and indeed, in some cases, vomiting. And as I say, a few years ago, I did have to ask our neighbourhood rangers to come along to make sure that was cleaned up pronto. So, you know, whilst these things, you know, we can't directly attribute necessarily to the Rose Cottage service station, what I can say is that there is an issue with antisocial behaviour in the night along Kingston Road, and it's my fear that that will be exacerbated greatly if 24-hour alcohol is granted at this site.
Thank you. Any further questions? We'll move on to closing statements. Councillor Giles, would you like to make any closing statement?
I think I've said everything that I need to say, Councillor Sillett. I hope it was thorough, and I hope you'll forgive me, Chair, for my response to the applicant when I was repeatedly cut off, but that's immensely frustrating. Thank you.
Mr. Botkai, would you like to make any closing statement?
Yes, thank you. And you know, I am able to interrupt where I feel that we're heading in the wrong direction in terms of fairness. There hasn't been a long line of applications here.
No, you're not.
Sorry?
I don't know who said that, sorry.
Right. So according to the history that I've got, and certainly since I've been involved, there was an application in 2020 which we withdrew. So it wasn't refused. There was an application in 2021 when late night refreshment was granted, and then the application that was refused in full was September 2023 when we had public health and the police making representations. So that's the actual situation in terms of the history. Councillor Giles is worried that if we are granted this licence, it will act as a precedent. Well, it doesn't. There is no precedent in licensing. So should you grant this store a 24-hour licence, it doesn't mean that other stores in the area can come along and say, well, MFG have got one. Each application is dealt with on its merits. Councillor Giles doesn't speak for public health. Public health have not made a representation. Their data that they produced a couple of years ago related to ambulance call-outs, I think within 500 metres. As I've said in my earlier address, if you look at the map that's been included with the papers, 500 metres covers a very large area. Indeed, it's very difficult to pinpoint that sort of stat to the petrol station. I'm disappointed that the council would seek to introduce his own attempt to catch the store out in 2020. If that had been included in his representation, then, and the reason I objected to this is that if he'd included that in his representation, I would have been able to investigate and provide a proper answer for you as to what may or may not have occurred in 2020. So I would ask you to disregard that, because we simply don't have the facts of his attempt to catch the store out. Right at the outset, Nikki informed you that I think 210 or 215 letters were sent out to local residents explaining what this application was about, and that has produced 3 representations plus Councillor Giles's representation, and I would suggest that is a very low figure indeed of concern from local residents. If this was as bad as Councillor Giles is stating, with all the violence and the antisocial behaviour and the vomiting and the litter and the traffic, then this was the opportunity for residents to bring it to your attention. It's not difficult, it can be done by email, and you will know that there are plenty of hearings where there are a lot of where residents do come together and object to applications. So it's a very light objection from the three residents out of the over 200 residents who were consulted. So we are in a different position this time around, and there's no objection from the student box. They had raised concerns a few years ago, but they haven't objected to the application now. And of course, alcohol is available 24 hours a day in this area anyway. You'll be aware that the students and anybody else can go on their phone and order alcohol 24 hours a day. So if they want to get alcohol on very short notice, they can do so, because they're a delivery service, and they can do it from MFG's premises as well. So we're not all of a sudden introducing, oh, you know, the students, but we couldn't get alcohol before, now we can. It's not. It's going to have a very small impact, if any, on the local area, and we're very happy to work with Councillor Giles and the other councillors in the area. So if there are problems, if these problems do arise, and if I can just say that at every hearing that I've done for MFG, and quite a few, at every single hearing I do for MFG, I make sure I say at the end, look, you have concerns, we understand those concerns, we don't believe those concerns will materialise, but if they do, please contact us, because we can do something about it. And if we don't do something about it, then you do have the power to review the licence. And nobody's suggesting that the midnight licence here at the moment has caused any problems whatsoever. There's no evidence whatsoever of problems. And we believe there will be no problems by extending the license to 24 hours in line with the other 800 or so stores that we operate. But if there are problems, then please get in touch. This is a plea to Councillor Giles or to any other officer, and we will tackle those issues. And if we don't, then that's when the committee has got the power to revoke the license, suspend it, change the hours. And that's generally how licensing is supposed to work. It's a permissive piece of legislation with a sting in the tail, which is the license review. So that's the application before you today. We would ask you to grant based on the evidence that's before you today, not the evidence that was produced at previous hearings, but the evidence that you have before you today. And that evidence has got to be relevant and within date, and not 10 years old, or I spoke to this person, or I spoke to that person. And sorry, on the police side of it, Councillor Giles is not the person to say how the police local neighbourhood team would view the application. We have to have confidence that the police licensing officers we met with would have consulted with their neighbourhood team. There's no reason why they wouldn't have done so, and there is no objection from the police. That is the situation you have today. They are your experts on crime and disorder, as referred to in your last decision notice. The situation is different. Based on the evidence today, I would submit that you're safe to grant this application. Very happy to answer any other questions that you may have, but thank you for listening today.
Councillor Spillett, you are on mute.
Sorry about that. Thank you all for attending. The subcommittee is now going to withdraw to make its decision. The decision will be confirmed to all parties by email, and the full decision notice with reasons will be sent to all parties within 5 working days. Please can members of the subcommittee reconvene in the decision meeting at 12 o'clock, or may I suggest actually right now, for the decision. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Nice to see you, Guy.
Bye.